So good evening, and welcome again to Celebrate Recovery. We're glad you were able to take time this holiday weekend especially to meet with us here this Friday night. My name is Sean Hall. I am a grateful believer who has had victory over alcoholism, but who struggles with anger and resentment issues. As you'll no doubt know by now, Bob's not here tonight. He asked me to step in and pinch hit for him, so I'll be giving the lesson. Like many people, I face kind of public speaking with a certain amount of fear and dread, and I appreciate your patience as if I get nervous or I fumble my way through this. But I know it's not about me, and that my prayer is that God will, through this, reach out to each of you tonight and touch you in a personal way, and that some part of this message will really be impactful for you. I think it's a good lesson and good material. Before we begin, I had a couple of announcements. First, if you have prayer requests, you can fill out one of the cards that are in the seat back. There's not an offering box tonight, but you could give that to me after the message if you want, and I'll put it upstairs, and we'll have about 100 people praying for you this week. Also, if you have a answered prayer that you'd like to share with us, we'd love to hear about that. Second, many of you are aware that Celebrate Recovery was started at Saddleback Church down in Southern California, and every year they have what they refer to as the CR Summit. It's a big deal. I've never been, but those who have really rave that it's hugely powerful and memorable experience. This year the summit's from August 9th through the 12th, or actually the summit itself is from the 10th through the 12th. We'll be leaving on the 9th. The group from Creekside goes every year, and if it's something you are thinking about or would like more information, please let me or Bob know. It may seem like a long way away, but the deadline for registration for the early bird discount is coming up soon, and so we'll be registering a group in the next couple weeks. And if you'd like to be a part of that or like more information, like I say, just let Bob or myself know. We'll get you hooked up with that. So with that, I'll jump into the lesson. The title of the lesson tonight is Spiritual Inventory Part 1. By way of background and for context, the Celebrate Recovery program is really designed to help us grow spiritually. And it's based on the Beatitudes, as recorded in Matthew from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. And the leaders of Celebrate Recovery took the Beatitudes and from that form developed the 8 principles that Terry read to us earlier. And over the course of the year we've been going through them, and we're currently at principle number 4. So if you'll open up the bulletin on the back cover, or back inside cover, we'll read principle 4 again, which reads, "Openly examine and confess my faults to myself, to God, and to someone I trust." And right beneath that principle is the supporting scripture, which comes from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. "Happy are the pure in heart," from Matthew 5:8. And although Celebrate Recovery isn't really a 12-step program in a classic sense, it does, the 8 principles correlate to the 12 steps found in 12-step recovery program. And the equivalent step is step 4, which is, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So inventory is the subject we've been discussing several weeks now. It's an important part of the recovery process, and so we're really spending a lot of time here. There'll be even another couple of lessons to come on this topic. And the last lesson we really talked about the form used in the inventory. We began talking about the different columns in the form and the information that goes into the form. And tonight we're going to dive a bit deeper into our discussion of inventory and brainstorm different ways to help us in preparing our inventory. As an aside, I know inventory can be real daunting for many people. I know it was for me. Perhaps you may have fear of pain that could arise as you go through these things, or feel overwhelmed in getting started, or perhaps just don't see the point. But I just wanted to stress that it's just a super important part of the recovery process, not just as an exercise to rehash the past, but as part of a process to really, through self-examination, uncover truths about the past and how they have affected you, and ultimately to be able to let go of those and move forward in a deeper relationship with Christ. My hope is that this process won't be too much of a burden, and that if you are struggling to get started, I would offer just a few points. First, that it's not too late to start. You don't have to feel like because it's the third lesson or so, we're kind of already beyond. You can start at any time. I'd encourage everybody to start small if it feels overwhelming, and just take, as Bob had talked last time, in small chunks, break it down. We don't have to do everything at once. And finally, seek accountability. If you don't have a sponsor, and that's a prior lesson as well, but if you don't have a sponsor, it's really important to get a sponsor to help hold you accountable and to keep on track as you go through this process. And if you are having trouble finding a sponsor, please let Bob know, and he's got a list that can help people get hooked up there. And then finally, through like the lesson last week and this one and others, I think they're designed to be just tools to help go through the inventory process. We're going to kind of go through a lot of questions tonight and different aspects of focus areas that are useful in helping to brainstorm and begin developing your inventory. And so our hope is that this kind of simplifies it and kind of allows you to get started. I'd finally note that one size doesn't fit all, and you don't have to feel like you have to do every one of these questions or check every box. It's kind of just a smorgasbord of different things to kind of help the brainstorming process. So anyway, with that, the focus of the discussion tonight is on 4 specific areas of our life that we all need to examine as we're kind of going through and preparing our inventory. These areas are identified in your note sheet, and they're fill in the blanks there that you can fill in as I give them to you. So does everybody have a bulletin? You'll see the note sheet here. So the 4 areas we're going to look at. First one is relationship with others. So others is the blank there. The second is priorities in your life. So your life, the blank there. Third is your attitudes. And the final one is your integrities, which I never realized before tonight that integrities could be plural, but it is apparently can. So anyway, getting started with the first category, which is relationship with others. We began discussing this last lesson when we were talking about how to fill out our inventory form. But as I said, tonight we'll go in a bit deeper. As we do this, it'd be helpful if you have 2 handouts. I think everybody should have. If you don't have, let me know. The handouts are an inventory workbook, which is like this. I would note, too, even if you picked up one last week, this one is version 2.0. It's new and improved with some enhanced bells and whistles, so you may want to check this out as well. And then the second handout is this one's labeled Spiritual Inventory Part 1. And this is what we'll mostly be going through tonight. So as I said, we can start by, everybody has one, Spiritual Inventory Part 1. So if you get to that handout, look on the first page, you'll see relationship with others. And that's where we'll begin. under that heading it says, identify the people and circumstances that have impacted you in the past. And I would just stop, excuse me, and note that anytime you're preparing for the inventory, I think it's always important to start out in prayer. A particularly powerful prayer is the prayer from Psalm 139, verses 23 and 24. We've talked about this a lot of times. It reads, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path of everlasting life." So that's a powerful prayer. And anytime we're beginning the inventory, I think it's really good to spend some time in prayer beforehand, calming our minds and kind of getting ready to be led by the Lord. So after we've done our prayer, we begin to identify people, and in particular, look for people who we consider may have hurt us in the past, or who are indifferent to us, who try to minimize us, or scare, intimidate us, manipulate us, or disappoint us, and so on. These are obviously focused on negative experiences. I think, as Bob mentioned when he was going over the form, it's good to be balanced in these forms and try to balance negative experiences with positive. And so, although it's not written here, I'd also encourage you to consider people who might have had a positive influence with you as well, and be cataloging those along with the negative experiences. After brainstorming out the people who may have impacted us, we next turn to identify past circumstances that may have impact on us. Particular areas to consider would be, whether you might have failed at something, or you didn't meet expectations of someone else or yourself. Maybe you were involved in an embarrassing situation or a crisis, working for an unfair boss, or had abusive parents, a poor teacher, or maybe you were unjustly accused of something. Further questions would be, are you holding grudges? If so, against whom? Are you seeking revenge? Are you jealous of someone? Have you hurt someone? Have you been critical or gossip about someone? Do you rationalize your behavior? And as you're going through each of these areas, the people and the circumstances, record it. These will be items you'd record in column 1 of the workbook, this book here. We go one event at a time and finish one event before moving on to the past. In your notes here, it has the Psalm 139. Like I said, I think it's good to have that at the beginning, but it's an important prayer to be focused on throughout this process. So we've got this brainstorming and identified people and circumstances that have impacted us in the past, and recorded that in column 1. And next we would look at the second column, which is really describing what happened to you. And personally, I find the workbook a little confusing in that the heading is the cause. I like what it says in the notes, which is really what happened. So in mine, I cross that out and put what happened to kind of help focus that. But we're looking at the specifics around the person or circumstances that we've identified. So it could be a situation of abuse, physical, emotional, or psychological, controlled or dominated situations where that might have occurred in your life, where you might have been humiliated by a teacher, boss, or friend, lied about or to, treated insensitively or rejected, etc. Again, I would encourage everybody to be balanced in this and to look for positive situations as well. Try to remember exactly what happened. And once again, pray through Psalm 139, 23-24, which is so important. We'll read it again. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path of everlasting life. As you go through this, get into as much detail as you can. Be objective. consider what they did, what we did, were others involved, what were the circumstances, etc. This will take time to do. You may have to review the same event several times. It can be an iterative process where each time you think through it, new details might emerge or you kind of get deeper into it. But you can be comforted knowing that God will give you only what you can handle as you go through the process. Regularly discuss what you discover with your sponsor. This is super important because it helps to keep you accountable. Sponsor can also probe and ask questions to help you dig in deeper, can kind of help keep you objective if, in cases where people might be tempted to rationalize and whatnot. So it's really important to be meeting regularly with your sponsor and going through this as you go through the inventory. So we've identified people and circumstances in the first column and then kind of thought about the specifics of what happened. And next, in the third column, we then move on to record the impact that the events had on you at the time they occurred. So this is at the time they occurred as opposed to how they may impact you now, which we cover in column 4. So examples of possible effect here would be shame or rejection, feeling stupid, weak or powerless, or overwhelmed. Other things to consider as you're thinking through this would be if you thought there was something wrong with you, did you avoid certain people or become fearful, become tentative about life, develop phobias or a critical spirit. Again, review this with your sponsor, do it progressively, which means, in increments, regularly, small steps, and, I would just emphasize again, it's something where you want to strive for quality, not quantity. So it's worth, taking the time and just taking off small chunks and digging in those as deep as you need to, rather than trying to blast through, bigger chunks. So with the first 3 columns filled in now, with the person, how they, what happened, what the impact was at the time, we turn to the 4th column, which is to consider the damage and what impact the past events have on us today. Again, I would say damage carries with it negative connotations, so you may want to think about column 4 as impact rather than damage, because it can be positive or negative, the impact of past events, if we're thinking about both positive and negative events and trying to keep the worksheet balanced. So examples of questions to consider is kind of thinking about the 4th column, the impact column, is when I think of the past event, do I feel pain even today? Do I have any bad habits that can be traced to that event? In case you're wondering what bad habits look like, examples could be swearing or laziness, lack of direction, anger, overeating, giving up easily. And of course, there are many, many more. Other questions are, do I have any hang-ups that can be traced to the event? Am I afraid of life as a result of the event? Do I have fears as a result of the event? Do I avoid certain kinds of people? Am I afraid to take on certain kinds of tasks? And do I avoid certain kinds of circumstances, etc.? So, many questions. Others are, am I preoccupied with adversity and impending disaster? Am I concerned that I will not be able to meet life's challenges? Am I worried about rejection, humiliation, or failure? Do these concerns impact my ability to be intimate? Do they impact how I feel about myself, my self-worth? Am I stuck with the idea that I'm no good? Do I think people don't like me? Do I use unhealthy ways of dealing with my pain? So the real exercise here is to try to find connections and insights that link past events and with current issues, and try to kind of be able to really bring light to those situations. The final column is the my part column, the 5th one. Here we identify how we may have contributed to our problems. For this, of course, honesty is essential. And given that, I think that this is another great time where prayer of Psalm 139 could be helpful as we're considering our parts in these situations. We have to resist our natural tendency to blame others or minimize our part in what happened. And it's the purpose of the exercise is to understand and be honest about what we may have done to contribute. Whatever we find there is recorded in column 5, and of course, there will be times when we're blameless, and in those cases, you can put no part in column 5. I think this is an area that could benefit greatly from a sponsor to help work through that and really try to get at what our part was in a particular situation. So to recap, we're going through our inventory in our 4 focus areas, of which there were 4. And the first one was relationship with others, which we've gone through in detail now in the 5 columns and laying that out. And so next we're going to turn to the second focus area, which is priorities in your life. And I must caveat a bit that I don't fully understand how this fits into the form. It doesn't really say specifically in my notes or in the handouts. I think it's, as I think about it, it's certainly related to column 4 and the impact of events and circumstances on us today. I think certainly past events will have shaped our priorities and focuses of today. And so part of the exercise from an inventory perspective would be to kind of consider that, which is what we'll go through. It also feels much broader. As we go through the questions, you'll see there's much of an element of it that is more forward-looking and how, what should our priorities be, and thinking through this, how, what are areas in our lives where our priorities may be not what we want them to be or what we should be. And this is kind of a springboard, I think, for beginning to do thinking along those lines, which is beyond the scope of the inventory, but really comes to mind here. So I think Bob would have more insight and context for this, but I think we can still get a lot out of it. And it can help as we prepare our inventory and in our spiritual growth. So with that, what are priorities? They are guidelines for a living. As it says here in the handout, they establish levels of importance in our lives, and if our priorities are right, we will generally live happy and productive lives. However, if they are not, we'll often have difficulty. So it's key to understand what the right priorities are. And part of this exercise is to help us think through what are the priorities of our lives. And to do this, we'll take a look at the handout. We'll provide some questions to get us started as we consider that. And we'll really look at 5 different kind of priority areas in our life, which would be God, the past, family, friends, and work. So first, turning to God, question to consider, is the Lord in control of your life? And it may not be as simple as a yes or no answer. It may need to dig into that a little deeper. Many questions here to kind of flesh that out a bit. Are there areas of your life that you're holding back? When you sin, do you promptly confess it? Do you regularly consult the Lord about everything? Or, corollary, do you avoid consulting the Lord about certain things? Do you normally try to solve your problems yourself? Do you regularly spend time with God? Spend time in prayer? Do you regularly do self-examination or study your Bible? And do you have a problem believing God is real or that He cares about you? Obviously, if that's the case, it's going to be hard for the Lord to be fully in control of your life. The second area is the past. So does your past control your life today, and how does that affect today? That's clearly a column 4 exercise in looking at what events in the past and how those impact you today. And you consider how past events have affected your ambitions, your hopes, your dreams, your lifestyle, attitudes about yourself, or your ability to relate to others, to make good choices, or to be intimate. Many ways the past can affect us. Next is family, and where does family fit into your life and as one of your priorities? Do you love and respect your spouse? Are you kind and patient? Do you only want the best for your spouse? Do you forgive easily? Do you frustrate your children? Guilty. Do you frustrate other members of your family? Do you build up your family? Do you regularly spend time with them? Another area is friends, and thinking about what kind of priority your friends are in your life. And I would extend this broader to just other people more generally than just friends. Do you love others as Christ loves you? Do you love your enemies? Do you help others who need help? Are you generous with your time and money? Are you friendly? Do you put others down? Are you a gossip? All questions to think about in considering what role your friends are in your life or other people. And finally is work. And how does work fit into your life? Are you honest at work? Do you steal from your employer? Do you put in a full day's work? Do you work to the glory of God? In other words, is God your boss? I'd also add is, do you allow work to consume other parts of your life and take away from God and family and friends and other aspects of your life? So evaluating these questions will help you assess how the past may have shaped your current priorities and help define what your priorities should be. And as with all of the steps of the inventory process, regular interaction with your sponsor and going through this is super important. So we've been through relationship with others and priorities in your life, and the third area is attitude, which is also a column 4 impact category. And as it notes here, our attitudes are often shaped by past events, both good and bad. And so when you work on this category, go kind of step by step through the people and events that have been recorded in columns 1 and through 3, and then one at a time look at how each one might have influenced your attitude today. Some areas to consider are, did this person event result in a current impact that could tend to make you angry or bitter, hateful, anxious, dissatisfied, and the list goes on. There's a lot of negative attitudes there. On the other hand, we'll look at positive attitudes as well, and whether the event might have made you grateful or kind or loving, affirming, encouraging, etc. And as you think through this, kind of focus on the key attitudes, and what would you say are the key attitudes in your life today, and what are the drivers of that, the things that have happened in the past that might have impacted that. And if you're not sure what your key attitudes are, or even if you think you're sure, it might be worthwhile doing as a sanity check. We'd encourage you to ask people around you who know you and love you, and I think most importantly, would be willing to be honest and tell you the truth, and kind of get a sense of what your attitudes are. As always, discuss this with your sponsor, and it's a good, I think, time very similar to priorities to focus on both what are my attitudes and what should my attitudes be. The fourth and final focus area that we'll discuss tonight is your integrities. This is also a column 4 category, and similar to attitudes and priorities, we'll review what we've recorded in the first 3 columns and evaluate the impact of those events or people on our integrity. And rather than asking if you're dishonest or a thief or a liar, I always think it's better to think in terms of areas we might struggle with or have a tendency towards or have done. So I would consider whether the event or the person has led you to struggle with or have a tendency towards dishonesty or being or stealing or manipulating, exaggerating, etc. There's also events in the past that will have positive impacts on your on your character or your integrity, people who have inspired you towards honesty or dependability or reliability, being forthright or considerate, etc. And like attitudes, consider whether these are lifestyle habits. What are the aspects of integrity that really define you? And are they where you want them to be and where God wants you to be? Again, as with the other things, discuss these things with your sponsor as you go through the process. That concludes our discussion for this evening. Nice and short, extra time for open share. There's a lot here to think about, but I would encourage you again to try not to be overwhelmed by it. Just do it carefully and slowly. Take on what you can. Don't be in a hurry. The importance is to really spend time and to go through each of these elements thoroughly before going on to the next one. And know that God will bless you as you do this. So with that, ask Rick to come up to read us the Serenity Prayer.
Good evening. I'm a grateful believer in the Lord who's had great victory over addiction. I still struggle with lust, anger, and judgment. My name is Rick. We're going to do this Serenity Prayer tonight, and as I tell my group often, if you break this prayer down, it's a pretty incredible prayer. So why don't we all stand up and you join me? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen. Thank you.